Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Gross.
I still think there's a great benefit in being an American citizen. I still think there's a great benefit traveling on an American passport. Like, I would have in my mind that, if I got stuck somewhere, the Navy SEALs are coming, Delta Force is coming to raid the village straight out of a movie, raid the prison and get me out. These are the things I would think. So for your own government to tell your parents, hey, manage expectations, he might not be coming back, or he might be coming back in a body bag. I can't imagine the emotional damage that did to your parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have their own kind of stories within this story to deal with having to manage expectations and being told that. And I think that the American government and military is incredibly capable. There are sometimes situations that do become trickier than others, but certainly grateful to be an American. Absolutely. Just getting back to the kind of the end of this story here. Yeah, with everything that you just described being the case and my parents and family dealing with that communication, it was about 3 weeks later when my younger sister, Stephanie, she was 25 years old at the time, she was living in Nashville, and she particularly became overwhelmed with everything that was happening. And she decided that she needed to call someone and talk to them about this and just blow off some steam, which was against the recommendation of the U.S. government of keeping all of the communication very tight. And so she decides that she's going to call her former college roommate, who is coincidentally also named Stephanie. So there's this phone call between the Stephanies, and as the story goes, it starts out, hey, how you doing? And my Steph says, actually, things aren't very good. And she goes on to explain, my brother's been missing for weeks and nobody's heard from him. We're working with all of these agencies and officials. Nobody's been able to help. We're really scared. And roommate Steph is, of course, shocked to hear something like this, but she says all the right things and offers her full support. And at the end of the call, as the story goes, roommate Steph says, hey, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. And my Steph responds almost jokingly or sarcastically. She says, honestly, unless you know someone who knows Assad, the Syrian president, please just pray. And our roommate Steph says, wait, let me call you back. And it turns out that roommate Steph is Lebanese, and her uncle is good friends with General Abbas Ibrahim. General Ibrahim has, as I mentioned, this back channel relationship with the Syrians and was able to mediate my release when so many others were struggling to do anything. And so it became this situation where he go down like the FBI, the CIA, the White House, Pentagon. Pope Francis was involved, Russian intelligence, Middle East NGOs, private sector security companies. They were all in one way or another struggling to be effective. But then my sister's college roommate can identify a path to get an American hostage released from captivity in the Middle East. It puts so much into perspective. I couldn't be more grateful. And as you were saying, it's just this incredible display of the way that I think God will use ordinary people to do extraordinary things.
Had there been any communication at this point? Like when you get to general population, were you able to write letters or get a phone call or get on the internet? Or did your family have any proof of life at this moment when Stephanie calls Stephanie?
One of the other inmates had helped me send out a letter, kind of smuggle out a letter. Another one had helped with an Instagram message, and they did the best they could, but I never got anything. Like I didn't, there was like very thin communication. My family had some idea that I might be alive and might be in a certain facility, but it was like very thin at that point.
Oh, the libertarian in me, I can't help but mention that the moral of the story is never listen to your government. Trust your sister more than the CIA. I'm just joking. I know you can't endorse that statement, but yeah, I find it. How many thank you gifts have you bought for roommate Stephanie? And if you're not married and she's not married, how have you not married this lady that found the back channels to Lebanon?
Yeah, no doubt. Like certainly very good family friends. And yeah, if people ask, you get the Stephanies a special Christmas gift every year or something like that. And yeah, I think their roommate Steph, she could have said, hey, I'm okay, I'll think about it or I'll do what I can. But she took action. And I think millennials sometimes problem solve differently despite what they're told to do. I think that action, I think there's a lesson in there for all of us. And for me, I just couldn't be more grateful.
Man. And how was it that Stephanie calling a friend who knew the general, or a family member who knew the general who knew Assad. Have you ever gotten the story on why these people, again, Syria is going through a civil war. They have almost no diplomatic relations with the US. There's all kinds of back channeling going on with Russia. They're fighting the Kurds and ISIS and everything else. Did you ever find out why these people were willing to call in a favor and or put their reputation on the line to save Sam Goodwin, an American that they didn't know from a hole in the ground?
Yeah, if I could have the full, complete answer to one question, it's really around this. Like, why was I targeted? Why was it released? What was the deal? And I don't have all the information today. It could have been wrong place, wrong time. It could have been travel history. Potentially, the Lebanese wanted to bolster their relationship with the United States. There could have been some geopolitical considerations there. So I don't have all the information up to this point. But as you were saying, certainly continue to write a lot of thank you letters.